Nearly 5 months. One wrist that nearly ended his season. And now, the first real test. The French Open, gone. Wimbledon, gone. Toronto, gone. Cincinnati, gone. An entire summer of tennis, wiped off the calendar for the world's second-ranked player. Last night, he finally got back on court, mixed doubles, alongside Serena Williams. A win in the first round, then a loss in the quarterfinals. Real rust showing, right there in the Open, in front of a sold-out Arthur Ashe Stadium. But that was just the appetizer. In 4 days, the real test begins. On Sunday, Carlos Alcaraz walks into his singles opener, as the defending champion, in a Grand Slam, against a bracket full of players who've spent the entire summer sharpening their games while he sat on the sidelines. Everything he built last year, the title, the ranking points, the aura of being the man to beat in New York, all of it is on the line in a matter of days. And unlike a normal year, he's walking in having barely played a handful of competitive points all season. This is the story of a champion racing against a clock he can't stop. Here's what should be happening right now, if we're being honest about how these comebacks normally go. Normally, when a top player comes back from a 5-month layoff, especially a wrist injury, which is one of the most delicate, most match-field-dependent injuries in tennis, they ease in. They pick a smaller event, an ATP 250, maybe a 500 at most. Somewhere with lower stakes, a smaller crowd, less pressure, and most importantly, room to lose early without consequence. It gives a player a chance to feel out their footwork, test the injury under real point-by-point pressure, and find their timing again without the entire tennis world watching every single shot. Alcaraz skipped almost all of that process. Last night's mixed doubles gave him something. Real points, real pressure, a real crowd. But it's mixed doubles. Shortened sets, no ad scoring, doubles positioning. It is nowhere close to the physical or mental demands of a 5-set singles match against a top 50 opponent. He admitted as much himself afterward, saying he was really nervous, and even double faulted on the very first point of the tournament. So the bigger picture doesn't change much. No real tune-up event. No low-pressure first round in singles to shake off months of rust. Instead, in 4 days, he walks directly into a Grand Slam singles draw, the last one of the year, as the reigning champion, in a best-of-5 set format that punishes any physical or mental gap mercilessly. There is no easing into a 5-set match. You are tested immediately, relentlessly, and for hours at a time. And he's doing all of this with a wrist that's now been tested in exactly one competitive setting, mixed doubles, and nothing close to the punishment of singles. Tomorrow, the men's singles draw is revealed, and we'll finally know exactly who stands in his way in round 1. But whoever it is, this is still not a cautious return. This is a gamble, and in 4 days, the tennis world finds out if it pays off. Before Alcaraz had even stepped on court for a real match in New York, before a single competitive point had been played, he said something small in a pre-match interview, but something that told us everything we needed to know about where his head was really at. Asked about the return, he didn't try to project false confidence. He said it plainly. Everyone could see how nervous I was. I made a double fault on the first point. I was really nervous. I was out for almost 5 months. Think about what that says. This isn't a player pretending the pressure doesn't exist. This isn't false bravado before a tournament even starts. That's raw honesty, from a 23-year-old 7-time Grand Slam champion admitting the nerves got to him on point number 1 of his actual comeback. That's not weakness talking. That's someone who cared enough about this moment to let it actually rattle him, and then still fought back to win the set anyway. Hold on to that image, because by the end of this video, it's going to matter again. But wanting the fight and being ready for the fight are two very different things. So let's actually break down the real questions here, because there are 3 and they're not vague. They're specific, technical, and they'll be answered in real time over the next 2 weeks. First, the wrist itself. Is it actually fully healed, or is it healed just enough to compete without breaking down completely? Last night gave us one small data point. He played through mixed doubles without any visible physical alarm, but that's shortened sets, doubles positioning, far less lateral movement, and far fewer punishing rallies than singles. There's a massive difference between surviving mixed doubles and surviving a 5-hour singles battle, and it's a difference that doesn't show up in a press conference or a highlight reel. It shows up on the 11th shot of a grinding baseline rally, 3 hours into a fifth set, when fatigue strips away every bit of compensation a player has been quietly using to protect an injury. Wrists are brutal for tennis players specifically because so much of the modern game, the heavy topspin forehand, the two-handed backhand, even the serve toss, relies on wrist snap and flexibility. You can't fake your way through that. Either it holds or it doesn't. Second, his serve rhythm. Nearly 5 months without singles match play means nearly 5 months without game speed reps on that exact service motion, under that exact kind of pressure. And last night's evidence was mixed at best. He admitted the nerves got to him immediately, double faulting on the very first point of the entire comeback. Practice courts are forgiving. Practice partners don't serve match points against you. There is a very specific kind of adrenaline and pressure that only shows up when a real point is on the line, and serve rhythm, timing, toss consistency, the explosive extension through the shot, is one of the first things to desert a player who hasn't faced that pressure in months. If his first serve percentage dips again in singles, that's the tell. Watch for it. And third, return timing. This is the one people underestimate the most. Reading a 130-mile-an-hour serve, picking up the spin and trajectory in a fraction of a second, positioning your body before your conscious brain even fully processes what's happening, that's not something you maintain through solo practice or hitting with a coach. That is built exclusively through live match repetition. It's muscle memory earned point by point, tournament by tournament. Mixed doubles helped a little here. He did face live serves and got some reps back, but it's a small sample against a format built for chaos and quick points, not the sustained, high-pressure baseline exchanges of singles. Against the current depth of the ATP Tour, where guys are serving bigger and cleaner than ever, that gap could still be the difference between a routine hold and a string of costly break points. And there's a fourth layer sitting underneath all three of these, one that doesn't get talked about enough. Physical endurance. Best of 5 tennis isn't just about shot quality, it's about survival. It's about executing the exact same technical movements in the 4th hour of a match that you executed cleanly in the first 10 minutes, when your legs are fresh and your focus hasn't been worn down by heat, crowd noise, and mounting pressure. Nearly 5 months away from tour-level conditioning is a long time for a body to lose that specific, brutal kind of match fitness, the kind that even a 2-match mixed doubles outing barely tests. Training environments and doubles points can push a player physically, but they cannot recreate the accumulated fatigue of a real 5-set battle against an opponent who is actively trying to break you down, point by relentless point. So really this isn't 3 isolated questions. It's one larger question with 3 visible symptoms. Has nearly 5 months away cost him the fine margin details that separate a champion from a contender? Last night was a start, but only a start. The wrist, the serve, the return. Each one is a different lens on the exact same uncertainty. 3 pillars, nearly 5 months of rust, 1 night of real match reps, and 2 weeks to find out whether any of it actually matters. So that's the case for doubt. Real, specific, technical doubt. But here's what works heavily in his favor, and it's more than people are giving him credit for. He's the defending champion on this exact court. That matters more than people realize. Arthur Ashe Stadium is one of the most intimidating environments in the sport. 23,000 fans, deafening noise, incredible pressure on any player unfamiliar with the moment. Alcaraz has already solved that puzzle. He's already beaten the best player in the world on this court, in this atmosphere, under these exact lights. That's not something he has to relearn. That's something his body and mind already know how to do. He also has something almost no other returning player in the draw has. Genuine championship pedigree at 23 years old. This isn't a fringe player scraping his way back into relevance. This is one of the most talented ball strikers of his generation. Someone whose game, explosive, physical, aggressive, tends to find its rhythm fast once real match adrenaline kicks in, and we already saw a glimpse of that last night. After that nervy start and the double fault, he and Serena won 8 of the final 9 games in the first round. That's not the profile of someone who stays rattled. That's someone who resets fast. And remember what he actually said afterward? I was really nervous. I was out for almost 5 months. That's not the quote of someone bracing for failure or trying to hide from pressure. That's someone who faced the nerves head on, named them out loud, and still competed his way to a win anyway. Confidence like that doesn't guarantee anything on court, but it's not nothing either. Champions who can admit fear and still perform tend to find a way to show up when it matters most. There's also the draw itself to consider. With the men's field reshuffled by other late withdrawals and injuries elsewhere in the seedings, the path to the second week isn't as brutal on paper as it could have been. That doesn't erase the physical questions. Nothing erases those until he's actually out there competing, but it does mean he isn't being asked to solve every single problem against every possible opponent in the very first round. There's at least some room to find his footing before the toughest tests arrive. And history offers a strange kind of comfort here too. Tennis has seen players return from long absences and find form faster than anyone expected, precisely because the rust burns off under the pressure of live competition in a way that months of practice never could. Adrenaline has a habit of sharpening reflexes that seemed dulled in the buildup. It doesn't happen every time, but it happens often enough that writing him off before a ball is struck would be premature. Let's not forget for a second exactly who we're talking about here. Defending champion at this event, two-time Grand Slam winner before he turned 21 years old, world number 2 in the rankings, even after nearly 5 full months away from competition, a ranking most players spend their entire careers chasing and never reach, let alone maintain through an extended absence. This isn't a player hoping to compete at this level. This is a player who has already proven, repeatedly, on multiple surfaces, against multiple generations of opponents, that he belongs at the very top of the sport. The resume doesn't disappear because of 5 months on the sidelines. If anything, it raises the stakes of what he's attempting right now. And that brings us to the real story here, the one buried underneath all the technical questions about wrists and serve percentages. He could have protected his ranking. He could have skipped the mixed doubles entirely, waited quietly for his singles opener, and taken the safe, predictable road that every risk-averse team in tennis would have recommended. Nobody would have blamed him for it. Instead, he chose to play live, competitive tennis at the earliest possible moment, nerves, double faults and all, in front of a sold-out Arthur Ashe Stadium, just days before defending a title he hasn't proven, not yet, not in singles, that he can still hold on to. And that single decision says everything about how this guy is wired. It's easy, watching from the outside, to reduce this to a simple risk calculation. Ranking points gained versus ranking points lost, reputation on the line versus reputation protected. But that framing misses something more human about why athletes at this level do what they do. There's a difference between playing tennis to preserve what you've already built, and playing tennis because you genuinely believe you're still the best player when it matters most. One of those approaches is cautious. The other is the mindset of someone who doesn't just want to hold a title. He wants to defend it, in person, against whoever the draw puts in front of him, with no asterisks and no excuses. That's the version of Carlos Alcaraz walking into Arthur Ashe Stadium this Sunday. So here's what to actually watch for when he steps onto that court for his very first service game. Watch how clean the wrist looks on the toss. Any hesitation, any guarding, any change in the natural fluidity of that motion will tell you immediately whether the injury is a lingering concern or a closed chapter. Watch how much pace he's actually willing to put on his second serve. A cautious, tentative second serve under pressure is often the first crack in a player's confidence, long before the scoreboard shows it. And watch the return games, how early he's picking up the ball toss, how confidently he's moving his feet into position before contact. Those 3 things, the wrist, the serve, the return, will tell you more about where Carlos Alcaraz really stands than any ranking, any prediction, or any pre-tournament press conference ever could. There's one more thing worth watching too, something that has nothing to do with technique. Watch his body language between points. Watch how he reacts to the first unforced error, the first missed opportunity, the first moment where 4 months of rust actually costs him a point he would have won a year ago. Elite athletes reveal as much about their readiness and how they recover from a mistake as they do in the mistake itself. A frustrated, spiraling reaction suggests doubt has crept in. A shrug, a reset, a return to the baseline like nothing happened. That's the sign of a champion who trusts the work he's put in, even after 4 months away. 4 days, one wrist, everything on the line. We'll be right here breaking down every single moment of it, starting with the draw reveal tomorrow.